Over the past decade, the Ontario real estate market has experienced a massive boom. More and more people from all over the world are deciding to call Canada their home and look to Ontario as an awesome place to invest. If you're not a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, or if you're buying a property with someone who isn't a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, you may be subject to paying a non-resident speculation tax, in addition to the existing land transfer taxes. In this video, I'll be going over what non-resident speculation tax is, how it's applied, and some scenarios where an exemption or a rebate may be available to you. What's up everyone? If you're new here, my name is Chris Chu and I'm a real estate lawyer here in Toronto. And on this channel, I'll be providing you with some useful information, insights, and tips about Ontario real estate law so that you can be more prepared when tackling your next real estate transaction. So everyone, before we begin, I'm obligated by the Law Society of Ontario to let you know that the content made available on this channel is for informational purposes only. It is not, nor is it intended to replace legal advice, and doesn't constitute a lawyer-client relationship. So let's jump into the bad news right away. I'm pretty sure that most people have a love-hate relationship with the videos I've been making recently since they deal with taxes, but hey, don't shoot the messenger. As of April 21st, 2017, the provincial government enacted a new tax called the non-resident speculation tax, or better known as NRST. Essentially, anyone who falls within the category of a foreign entity when purchasing a property is taxed 15% of the purchase price in addition to the existing land transfer taxes provincially, and if you're purchasing in the city of Toronto, the municipal land transfer tax. That means if you're purchasing a property in Hamilton, let's say, for $700,000 and you're considered a foreign entity, you'd likely have to pay $10,475 in Ontario land transfer tax and an additional $105,000 in NRST, totaling in at $115,475. Now, if you're purchasing a property in Toronto, the cost would likely be even higher. You'd likely have to pay $10,475 in Ontario land transfer tax, $10,475 in municipal land transfer tax for the Toronto portion, and $105,000 in NRST, bringing the grand spanking total to $125,950. That's a lot of money. Okay, so we're off to a pretty rocky start here. However, there is some good news. Now, NRST applies to buyers in a very specific category, namely if you're considered a foreign entity. What that means is either a person who is not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, or a corporation that is not incorporated here in Canada, or a Canadian company that is generally controlled by a foreign national. NRST only applies to properties purchased in the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Who came up with that name? Essentially, if you live within a 3-hour drive of the GTA, you're in the Greater Golden Horseshoe. That said, I'll put a link in the description below so you can find out whether or not your region is designated within that area. So, there's the good news. Now, it wouldn't be a video about taxes and the law without some seemingly more bad news. So, buckle up. If a Canadian citizen or permanent resident is purchasing a property with someone who is considered a foreign entity, the full 15% of NRST will be charged at closing, regardless of the foreign entity's stake in the property. So for example, if I'm purchasing a property with my friend and he's not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, even if he's only purchasing the property with a 10% ownership stake in the property, the total land transfer taxes and the total NRST would still be applied at the purchase. It's also worth mentioning that every single buyer is jointly and severally liable to pay the tax. That means that the government can choose to go after whichever buyer they like if the taxes aren't paid. Hey guys, before we discuss what kind of exemptions or rebates may be available, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know if you found this video helpful in the comments section below. Make sure you check out the other videos I have on this channel dealing with other real estate taxes that purchasers may encounter. Now at this point, I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk and give you bad news, then good news, then bad news again. So, well, here's some more good news. Even if your transaction falls within the NRST regime, you may be subject to an exemption. People who are considered nominees, which are foreign nationals who certify that they've applied to become a Canadian permanent resident or will become a Canadian permanent resident at the time of purchase. Foreign spouses that are also purchasing a property with a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, and protected persons under Section 95 of the Immigration Act may be exempt from NRST. However, these exempted persons must certify that they will occupy the property as their primary residence. In the case where they're purchasing the property with other people, every single purchaser has to certify that they're occupying that property as a primary residence as well. Essentially, what that means for Canadian citizens and permanent residents is that if they're also purchasing the property with an exempted foreign national, they also have to certify that the property is going to be occupied as their primary residence in order to be exempt from paying the full NRST. Now, another great piece of good news also comes in the potential for you getting a rebate from NRST. Now, a rebate on NRST may be available in the following situations. If you're a foreign national who becomes a permanent resident of Canada within 4 years of the date of purchase, if you're an international student who's been enrolled full-time for a continuous period of at least 2 years from the date of purchase, and you're studying at an approved institution at a campus located here in Ontario, or if you're a foreign national working here in Ontario who's legally worked full-time under a valid work permit in Ontario for a continuous period of at least 1 year since the date of purchase. It is worth noting that full-time means a minimum of 30 hours of paid work per week over a 1-year period, and a minimum total of 1,560 hours of paid work over that period. Again, to qualify for the rebate, very similar to the exempted persons, the foreign national must exclusively hold the property as a primary residence for the duration of that period, starting from 60 days after the purchase. So guys, there you have it. We're through this whole roller coaster of emotions, from good news to bad news to good news to I forget how big of a roller coaster it is for discussing NRST already. Let's just end the video soon. If you're a foreign homebuyer, your first job should be to speak with a lawyer right away to assess your overall tax criteria. It's worth noting that apart from a real estate lawyer, you should also consider getting in touch with an immigration lawyer for some advice, especially if you're considering immigrating to Canada, or you're a foreign student or a foreign worker that's planning on buying a home here. And if you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident and you're purchasing a property with another person, making sure that they're not subject to NRST is a big deal. Having a frank discussion with them about their plans, how costs are going to be split, if they're going to be footing the whole tax bill, and ensuring things are managed in accordance with the law and your own financial capacities is a huge factor that can be dealt with early on to save yourself a lot of headache. Well guys, I hope you found this video helpful. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I also have some other videos available talking about land transfer taxes and first-time homebuyer rebates, so definitely give those a watch if you haven't. Also, if you have a legal issue you want to speak to a lawyer directly about, you can get in contact with me to set up an appointment by visiting my firm's website, which I've linked in the description below. That's it for now guys, thank you so much for tuning in and I'll see you guys soon.